We just completed the very first Old School Runescape sailing alpha, and I'm going to be telling you everything you need to know about sailing, and I'll share my thoughts on the experience. To get started in sailing, you head down to Port Sarim and speak to Anne and Will in the new area of the boardwalk. They need a captain, and so instead of just hiring a captain, they've decided to find a random stranger, teach them how to sail, and then get them to captain the boat. Doesn't really make sense to me, but hey, it's a payday. We say we're ready, and we head to the open sea. The quest tells you how to navigate, which is fairly intuitive, and teaches you about trimming your sails to get speed boosts. Then they get us to do a bit of salvaging before eventually betraying us and pushing us into the ocean. Man, we just can't catch a break, can we? We wash up on Pandemonium, one of the new areas. This is a small island, made up mainly of boats that have been lashed together. We follow a lot more dialogue, too much dialogue, to eventually get our hands on our first raft, but now we're in debt and we need to pay off our debt by doing a cargo pickup. This introduces us to one of the key ways to get sailing XP. But I noticed that in the early levels you actually do seem to get more XP per hour from just sailing around and trimming your sails. That said, the experience rewards from completing higher level deliveries do scale, so I do think they're worth doing. You also get seemingly random items as rewards for these deliveries, which I'm guessing might change after the alpha, because most of them are useless clutter. We head back to the Pandemonium and complete our quest to unlock the rest of the sailing skill. We can pick up more delivery tasks from the notice boards in every port. There are also combat tasks where you have to kill mobs out at sea like sharks or monodons, but sea combat wasn't a part of the alpha, so we'll have to wait and see what that looks like. We can track our tasks in the captain's log, which also acts as something like an achievements diary that lists everything we can chart out at sea. Charting covers a few things. It includes going to specific locations both on land and at sea that are shown by a white glowing particle effect, and then you use your spyglass in these spots, which triggers a short cutscene to scan the area. There's another element of charting that we need to unlock to fully explore the seas. So we did a few more cargo deliveries, used our spyglass on a couple more spots, and soon enough we were at level 10. We headed back to Pandemonium, making a new friend on the way, and claimed the upgraded boat that level 10 sailing had unlocked for us. Then we went to speak to the barkeep again to start the Prying Times mini-quest. Steve Beanie needs his pirate looty from Port Sarim, so off we go again on another fetch quest. We also picked up a delivery for Port Sarim on the way, because I do think it's a good idea to string together delivery quests while you're training sailing. Unfortunately, we hadn't yet built the cargo hold on the new boat, so we were relegated to sailing our level 0 raft again. When we take the looty back to Mr. Beanie, we find out that we need a special key to open it, which could be forged by our friend Thurgo. While we're here, we decided to check out the rest of the island, and we found a pretty spectacular looking bank crab, and also a cave with a very handy source of red spider's eggs and a rope spawn, which actually could be quite good for Iron Men. We took the opportunity to home teleport so we could enable Thurgo's red berry pie addiction, only to find the alpha restricted us to just the ports, and we've been dumped back in Port Sarim. Ah well, never mind, back to the high seas. Oh wait, both our boats are in Pandemonium. We're stuck, we can't get out. So while we sat in the port and figured out what to do, we made a friend, Cabbage Man, who it turns out would actually save the day. He told us he was waiting for his friend, and I could hitch a ride with them. Sure enough, our ride turned up, and after some fiddling with a friends list, we got ourselves onto the high seas as a crew of 3. Sailing as a group is pretty sociable, but with these small boats, there's nothing for the crew to do. I think on bigger boats there are crew tasks, but for the alpha we just had these small boats. These guys told me they had the lofty goal of getting the first level 99 sailing. I wish them good luck, given the sailing alpha is capped at level 30. But yeah, shout out to Cabbage Man and Kato Meow. At the time, I thought I'd softlock the account, and they really saved my bacon. So thank you so much, guys. We then set out on our mission to find Thurgo, immediately forgetting we had an upgraded boat and going back to our raft again. We tried to sail up the river in Karamja, and we got our boat stuck. I really didn't want to end up asking for rides in Port Sarim again, but I couldn't find a way out, and so I submitted my bug report and teleported out. Turns out there was a way out, and this wasn't a bug, so sorry Jagex for the bad bug report. Back in Port Sarim, I realised that I was never softlocked, and that I could speak to Shipwright Sam to retrieve any boats. It just costs a little bit of gold, and I also had to lose my cargo. You can also buy new boats if you prefer, although abandoning a boat like I just did meant it was lost at sea anyway, so I had to retrieve it. So we took the opportunity to upgrade our boats. We customised our Kandarim small boat to give it a stronger hull and sails which would benefit us later, and I also finally added a cargo hold and a hook so we could do some courier work and some salvaging. We then delivered a tier 10 contract to Musa Point, which gave us significantly more XP than the level 1 deliveries, and then, true to form, we got ourselves stuck again while trying to plunder a crate that we couldn't even open yet. However, the third time was the charm, and we managed to find a reverse button in the sailing menu and avoided having to teleport to Port Sarim again. We did then sail all around Mudskipper Point and realised there was no way to actually sail to Thurgo. Instead we had to find a way on foot. So back to Port Sarim we went, again, Thankfully, the blockade around the ports in this alpha did leave a tiny corridor south of Port Sarim, which we hadn't seen before. So, pie in hand, we ran down and got Thurgo to make our special key, which turned out to be a crowbar. We excitedly took this to Steve Beanie and asked to crack open his crate, but he wouldn't let us. He told us that such a powerful artifact had to be tested first. We had to go find a crate off the coast of Pandemonium and open that, and so off we went again, on another arbitrary fetch quest to crack open an abandoned crate and drink the grog within for some reason. Now I have no idea why, but when we drank this grog, a pink troll appeared and tried to attack us, but he went down in a couple of punches. The reason the troll went down so quickly was actually that we transferred our save data from our main account to the alpha. What I didn't show in this video earlier was that we did that after we completed the first quest and got some sailing levels, and it actually reset us all the way back to level 1. I saw Jimmy made the same mistake, so Jimmy, I feel you, man. Do check out Jimmy's video on sailing as well. He's got some really interesting thoughts about where it could go in future. Then back to the pub we went. Finally, Steve would let us crack open his crate. But I didn't read the dialogue and I spent a few minutes running around looking for it. Finally, I realised the crate was just another piece of scenery right next to him. And so I went over, pried it open, to find a crate full of crowbars. Oh, the irony. We got a bit of smithing, sailing XP, but more importantly, this unlocked prying open crates at sea, which was the last thing we needed to chart the whole ocean. At this point, we were tired from the reams of dialogue and the incessant fetch quests, and so we decided to do some AFK skilling and try out our new salvage hook. It was quite rewarding to chill and get some salvage passively, but the results were a bit disappointing because when we sorted through it, we found just some low-tier loot. Maybe we were unlucky, but I think these low-tier salvage spots are more for the XP than the loot. We did later upgrade our hook to an iron hook, and we got ourselves a load of plundered salvage from sunken pirate ships, which gave much better rewards like dragonstones and alkaballs, so your mileage may vary depending on where you're doing your salvaging. Next, we had a whole sea to chart, so we headed out and did some proper sailing. We used our spyglass to go and chart different spots, and our crowbar to pry open some crates we found, all of which had their rough locations noted in our captain's log, so they weren't really hard to find. I must admit, the novelty was wearing off at this point. I did enjoy sailing a lot at first, but it was starting to feel like I'd explored the core mechanics now, and what was left was more of a checkbox exercise. This might be because the alpha was very limited to an extremely small area, and so there wasn't as much to do, but I soldiered on and I got the job done. We encountered a troll who wanted to study the weather and help them get their gear up and running by using some anti-rust tonic. Surprisingly, they then gave their newly restored equipment to us, but since we didn't know what to do with it, we just ignored it and left it in our inventory. Instead, we went and spoke to some mermaids who would take us to chart the seafloor if we helped expand their knowledge of land-based culture. Some of these questions are pretty straightforward. In this case, they wanted to know the ingredients for apple pie, but it wouldn't always be so easy. Soon enough, we found Victoria Kebbit Monkfish, who gave me the most irritating puzzle I've ever seen in my life. It was a cryptic string of words which required some incredible mental gymnastics to come up with the answer willow stock. I've always hated cryptic clues. I have a very literal brain and I've got no time for such nonsense. And so I've got no shame in saying I just googled the answer and got the task done. All this sailing around and completing achievements was giving us XP, and before we knew it, we were at level 21 sailing, and we could dock at Catherby. But we've been to Catherby before. Let's go and see something new. So we went on a tour visiting all the new islands out on the ocean. We checked out the Isle of Bones, which was bony. Charred Island had some interesting hunter spots, and a rather intimidating cave full of dragons, which, come to think of it, was not so surprising. We saw a fellow explorer on the way to the last light, and climbed to the top of the lighthouse to see a rather disturbing sight. Finally, we made it to the much larger new island called the Great Conch, which looks like it has a lot of new content, but unfortunately, we weren't allowed to dock during this alpha. Instead, we settled for Dognose Island, which had just a magic tree and a pickable chest. On the way back north, we took our life in our hands as we zoomed past Temperos, boosting ourselves on the whirlpools and avoiding the lightning clouds. One guy wasn't so lucky. They got pretty banged up by zappy old Temperos, so we decided to lay anchor, share our woes, and share some advice about sailing. While we were chatting, we did some salvaging, and although the loot wasn't great, we did get ourselves an easy clue, so these salvage spots do drop clues. The end was in sight now. We went around and did some more charting. We found shipwrecks and rocks and that kind of thing, but we're frustrated that we seemed to be blocked off from Shantae Pass due to a stepping stone in the way. Eventually we gave up and moved on. We grabbed the last few chartables in the area before checking out where else we could visit on the high seas. We realised we could dock at Entrana, so we thought we'd try that out, but we immediately got knocked out by a monk and sent back to Port Sarim. It seems we're doomed to keep coming back here. Never mind, this was a good opportunity to switch to a smaller raft and see if we could get past that stepping stone. To my surprise, we could. It felt like the game kept forcing us back onto this old raft, no matter how hard we tried to escape it. We tried to see if we could sail all the way up the River Lum, but alas we were blocked by another agility shortcut, so instead we pried open another crate and drank another suspicious substance to complete another section of our captain's log. Next up we decided to figure out what this weather station was for, and found it led us back towards Intrana. We managed to find some mastodons, which did some cool tricks for us, but otherwise were frustrated as the weather station led us in circles round and round Crandor and Intrana endlessly. Our simple video game trained brain had taught us that if the prompt says go south, you go south. If it says go east, etc. But that wasn't the case here. It was leading us round and round in circles, but not to our destination. There was one area right in the middle of this circle that we hadn't yet explored, which was the sea between Crandor and Intrana. And lo and behold, this was where there was no wind, and we could finally gather the readings the troll had asked for. Happily, we handed in the task, prepared to finish the captain's log. Next up, we had to measure currents, which seemed completely unexplained by the tutorial. Turns out you have to go to these spots with ripples on the water and deploy a current duck. I thought the duck was some kind of sailing cosmetic, and the current duck was the duck you currently had. But it turns out it's a tool for measuring currents. What follows is a frustrating minigame where you have to follow this duck as it goes off in random directions, but you travel faster than the duck, so periodically you have to stop your boat so you don't lose sight of it. Occasionally the duck can lead you to a dead end and then zoom off and leave you floundering as you try to reverse your boat. And the low draw distance means you then have to search basically at random to find it because the duck is gone. Eventually the duck will stop and you pick it up for the current to be charted. I did this a couple more times, as well as finding a strange stone tablet, which to be honest looked like just any other rock, before I was distracted by a poor soul who was stuck off the coast of Tutorial Island. It looks like they've fallen into the same trap I had. I told them they could reverse and they quickly seemed to find the button. It's not so bad when you know it's there. That's one good thing about this alpha. Everyone was super friendly and very chatty, which was great to see. I did a couple more ducks and I was done. I charted the entire sea. I got some decent XP from it, but I kind of hoped that it would at least get me to level 30 sailing, but I fell just short. So to get access to the last part of the alpha, I had to do one more delivery mission to hit level 30, and then we'd unlock the Barracuda Trials. This is a time trial where you have to go around Tempros's island and pick up some rum. What I didn't realise at first is that it's not really so much about the rum shipment on the other side of the island, but about picking up all the random crates floating in the ocean. Because the draw distance is so low relative to your speed, you basically have to search at random to find these crates, and are very unlikely to make the run in time in your first few tries. Thankfully the spawns are in the same location every time so you can learn where they are. Keeping mobile is the name of the game here. The boosts are good, but more important is to never hit a rock or a lightning bolt, as you need to keep your speed up. I got the first level of the time trials done on my 4th try, which gave a nice XP drop, and thought about trying the next one, which had 25 crates to find rather than the 14 from the first level. Given the final level of the trials requires finding 36 crates in 5 minutes, I decided to give it a miss. For me, the trials just become a monotonous exercise of finding all the crates manually and trying to remember all their locations, and frankly, I had better things to do. And that was sailing. Did I enjoy it? Yes. Was it also dull at times? Yes. Now, I was actually pretty sick when I played this. You might hear it in my voice, and that's also why the video didn't come out quite as early as I hoped, so sorry about that guys. But that might have tarnished my experience a bit, and this was only an alpha with no combat in a very small part of the game, with no access to the Great Conch, and levels capped at 30. So maybe I shouldn't be surprised that the experience felt a bit limited and repetitive. Overall, I think sailing is a good thing, but I do think once the novelty wears off that it's not something I'm going to want to spend hours grinding. It might be a good way to do some skilling while traveling to a location without using runes to teleport, or maybe to take you to an island that has a particular skilling method that you're looking for. I'll definitely do follow-up videos on future tests and the full release, but overall, at this point in time I give sailing a solid 6 out of 10. Did you guys try the sailing alpha? Did you have to do the quest twice like I did because you didn't realise that porting your save data over would undo your alpha progress? Let me know what you thought of it. Like I said, as I've not been well, I could only put this video out right at the end of the alpha, but I hope you found it useful. I do stream RuneScape and Bright Shores on YouTube and Twitch every week, and I put out videos regularly, so if you're interested in seeing my videos on your feed or getting notified when I go live, then please consider subscribing. It helps me an awful lot. Thanks so much for watching guys, I really appreciate it. Have a great day.